So it's December 22nd, 12:37. So I was thinking today about the latest developments in regards to having border security and having a wall or a fence or something on our border. I have never understood why we never had one there in the first place on our southern border. So I look online and I see all these liberals bitching and moaning and complaining, comparing refugees to Jesus and half a dozen other things. Some complaining, how come we don't have one at the Canadian border? Well, we don't need one at the Canadian border. There's no illegal immigration going between the United States and Canada. It's a little, you don't really hear much about the Canadian border. There's checkpoints, I know that. I've had some dealings business-wise with goods and merchandise coming over the border from Canada, and that can be kind of problematic as things get subjugated to searches randomly, and orders will get held up while they search through an entire semi-truck. But the southern border's always been a problem. I mean, you can watch old movies and everything. Everybody ran to the Mexican border. They never ran to the Canadian border. When there were criminals leaving this country or fleeing this country, they always went to the Mexican border, not the Canadian border. And that's besides the point. So let's tackle something that's been on my mind. It's, a few days before Christmas, and you typically will see a bunch of liberals bitching and moaning and complaining about stuff relating to Christmas and complaining about how conservatives are not Christian-like. Well, they proclaim to be Christians and blah, 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 blah. Well, first of all, I don't listen to anything liberals have to say about religion because they are totally ignorant about it for the most part. And I find them being terribly hypocritical too, because they don't have any concept of what's right, of righteousness. Personal righteousness, they have no concept of that. Everything is subjugated. Everything is subjective. Not subjugated, subjective. So, liberals that embrace religion, to me, or they claim that they're religious or they claim that they're Christians, they really aren't. They're secular more than anything else, because they really don't even have an understanding of Christianity, period. They don't have an understanding of what is right, what is wrong, and their whole idea of morality is skewed and jacked up. The minute they say that, they don't have a problem with abortion, they don't have an understanding of even the reality of science. That's what's interesting about them, too, is because they say that science proves that there's man-made climate change, and you have to adhere, and yet they're going to sit there and debate the sanctity of human life. That's the best part about them. But let's not get on that. Let's stick to this. So, here is this is how I view the whole illegal immigration thing in a Christian perspective. You have a whole bunch of pastors and a bunch of so-called religious people that go on the other side of the border helping people to come into this country illegally. First of all, you're breaking the law. And you're breaking a good law. This is not a law. Illegal immigration is a good law. It's not an immoral law. It's not something that's, Scripture's pretty clear about when you should break the law, and if the law is not righteous. Well, there's nothing wrong with having immigration laws. Excuse me. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And you need to have a proper vetting system, and it's up to countries to decide who they want to let in based on the particular needs of those countries. There's nothing wrong with that. So you have these so-called religious people that are going to go over there and help people get over here illegally. So you're breaking the law, which means you're already disobeying some scripture right there. So here's the gist of it. All right, you feel you're so self-righteous and it's your duty to help people get over the border legally. get over the border illegally. Well, you get them on the other side of the border, you get them here into the U.S., and then what do you do with them? Are you going to take personal responsibility of those people that you bring over, or are you going to give the responsibility to the government, to the taxpayer? And that's the single-handed thing that you really talk about. When Jesus says, if you do unto the least of these, you're doing unto me. If you give just as much as a cup of cold water, it's like you're giving it to me. He's not talking about the state doing this. He's not talking about the government doing this. He's talking about you're assuming the personal responsibility for doing what is right. Not giving it to somebody else, not letting it burden somebody else that didn't call for it. You don't take, let's look at it this way. You don't go grab a guy off the street, a homeless guy off the street, and bring him to somebody else's house and demand that other person gives him a shower, feeds him, puts clothes on the back. If you want to do that, you do it. You assume the personal responsibility for doing what is right. Okay? You don't force somebody else to do it. You cannot bring people into this country illegally, get them on the other side of the border, and say, okay, here you go. We're going to set up all the government stuff for it. No, that's not right. If you're going to play that game, then you take the personal responsibility for bringing that person over. You put them in your home, you feed them, and you take care of all the duties that's necessary to get them on the path to citizenship. Which probably means maybe you should be teaching them how to speak English, too, while you're at it. But none of these people are going to do this. None of these people that get on the other side of the Mexican border and start, figuratively throwing people over on the other side of the fence, they're not going to go on the other side of the fence and take care of them personally. No, they want to burden everybody else with the problem. That's not moral. That's not right. You can't do that to other people. You cannot force other people to take on a responsibility that you have decided in your own self-righteousness sake that you're going to do. Think about this. You don't hear this talked about much. If you're going to be charitable, if you're going to have empathy and you're going to have sympathy, and you decide that this is something you want to do, then you take on the personal responsibility of it. The New Testament is pretty clear about the way you should do things. But it's all about being personally responsible for doing those things. Okay, if that makes sense to you. It's not the government's job to do it. It's not other people's job to do it. If you decide that you want to help the less fortunate people of this world, if you decide that is on you, that is on your organization, that is on your head. If you set up an organization to do that, that's fine. Then it's your organization's responsibility to help, because that's what you have chosen to do. There's nothing wrong with charity. In this day and age, I think you got to be careful how you express charity. I've had some close personal dealings with homeless people. You don't want to bring them into your home. You really don't want to do that. I made the mistake of doing that once. Didn't work out very well. You don't want to risk the rest of your family because you decided you're going to be charitable. You have to have some wisdom when you do this stuff. I'm just telling you, I would love to go into details about this, but my closest friends all know. My closest friends know what I'm talking about here. It's a personal responsibility when you decide that you're going to do something. So don't get on your high horse. If you're gonna be one of these liberals and you are going to get up there and pontificate and talk down to us, to us conservatives about being compassionate and blah blah blah, and all the other stuff that you embrace, you better be doing it yourself. You better be taking the responsibility yourself. Nancy Pelosi is one of my favorite politicians. Gets on there saying a wall is immoral. Have you seen the wall around her home? If you have not seen the wall around her home, you should really take a look at it. They say walls are immoral, walls don't work. We'll tell that to the Vatican. The Pope likes to lecture the Western society on immigration too, and walls and border security and border control. And look at the wall that surrounds the Vatican. What do you think? What do you think that wall is there for? That's for their safety on the other side. What do you think Pelosi's wall is for around her home? For her safety on the inside, on her side. The unwashed masses are going to be on the outside wanting to get in. The other reason they have walls there is really not so much to keep out the common people, to keep out the crazy people, to keep out the criminals, to keep out the crazy people. That's why it's there. That's why they put walls around their homes. Why do you think there's gated communities? I get to go into gated communities. Man, I've been going in and out of gated communities for 30 years. You know, the 55 and up crowd, because the 55 and up crowd is worried about burglaries. So what do they have? They have gated communities. You can't drive into one of these places without some gate coming down and a watchman at the gate taking in your license plates. How about businesses? I've gone into plenty of businesses, all kinds of them, everything from insurance companies to what's the word? Tech companies, maybe tech companies, servers. You should see the security around these places. It's like a nuke plant with these big pointy fences with guards that are meant to look decorative that come around with points on them like this. And they look around your car with mirrors as you go through a guard gate. What is that for? That's called security. What are they afraid of? I have no idea sometimes. But walls work. Fences work. Anybody with any sense knows this. If you don't think walls work, would you forget about East Berlin? Forgot about Eastern Germany? I mean, really? What about Israel? They got a pretty big wall there. The Chinese, a long time ago, invested in a really big wall that can be seen from the moon. That seemed to work. Walls don't work. That's what you got a whole bunch of liberal politicians saying, walls don't work and they're immoral. The reason liberal politicians don't want walls is they need new voters. They need a steady influx of voters to keep them in power. That they promise to give. Look, I'm not against the welfare system. I believe our welfare system should be for our own citizens, our own people that need help, our own people that are on disability, our own people that have had things happen to them and have paid taxes most of their lives. Our welfare system is for that. And I don't care what the hell color you are, it's there for our own citizens. So we have to do this. I just don't understand what's the big deal. If you have a wall, a fence, whatever's there, it at least allows you to get some type of control over the problem at hand. And that's what you need. You need some control. You need to know who's coming. You need to know who's going. You can't have this unbridled, porous border where people are just swarming over, where some clowns could come from overseas. You don't know what's coming through there. I actually remember somebody saying, well, this would be detrimental to the wildlife. I personally don't give a damn as long as the birds can fly over it. That's all I care about. And I'm sorry if the jaguars can't migrate back and forth between Mexico and the American Southwest. I'm sorry. But as long as the birds can fly over it, I don't care. So this is the crux of the problem. The wall isn't immoral. The wall is a very moral thing to do for the people that live on the right side of the country that lives on the side that puts the wall up. It is the moral thing to do. It controls, it gives a sense of control over who's coming, who's going. It's the right thing to do. It's the logical thing to do. Oh, and I already know some guys that are going to say, but this is it going to solve the problem? No, it's not going to solve the problem completely. But boy, it allows you to get a handle on something. I just think it's just so insane. Every day, liberals show what their brains are made out of, and I think we could all pretty much guess what that is. So hopefully we will have a wall. And apparently, I've seen how Trump does things. He doesn't waste any time once he's got the situation going. He ain't going to waste any time. It ain't going to drag on for years to get it up either. It's going to go up, and it'll go up quickly. That's my guess. It'll go up quickly. I got to give this guy credit. I mean, even if you don't like him, he actually does what he says he's going to do. I've never seen a politician do that. I don't remember a president in my life that said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and he actually follows through on it. Hey, I don't know if any of you guys remember, but you might remember when Obama was pushing his health care. He said, hey, you're going to get to keep your doctor. You're going to have a $1,200 tax credit. Well, none of that shit came true. None of it. My health care keeps going up every year because of that son of a bitch. And mine was stable for over 10 years. And the minute he got his hands on it, it went into chaos. Oh, don't get me going on that piece of shit. I don't wish him any ill will, but man, I wish he would go away. I wish he would fade into the backdrop of history like most presidents do when they leave office. Not this guy. Ugh. Oh, can't stand him. Can't stand him. All right, so hopefully we'll have a wall, and liberals can completely lose their minds even more, and I'm going to love every minute of it. Till next time.